Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you about some of the miracle stories that are happening right here in our own city, in our own state, every day. My name is Tony Kausha, and the title of our show is Tony's 50,000 Coincidence Miracles. Please note, this show is not about religion, and we're not trying to change anyone's religion, and we're not trying to get you to join any religion. It's just about miracle stories. I don't know of any religion on the planet that doesn't talk about miracles. That's why religions begin, because they have something that's telling them there's really a God. But we're not going to get into that. We're going to just talk about miracles and leave the decisions about all that up to you. So we don't care what religion you are. We just want to talk about miracles. If you are an atheist, I think you'll enjoy the program as well, although I can't guarantee you'll remain an atheist very long after you hear many convincing stories, coincidence kinds of stories about miracles. You can email me your own stories if you wish. We'll try to use all we can on the show. I can't guarantee we will, depending on volume and time, but you're welcome to send your stories on to us, and we will mention them when we can. You can send them to the following email address. But please notice that if we do use your story, we won't mention your name. We'll keep you anonymous. And we suggest that in your story, when you send it to us, don't use your correct name. That way anyone listening will not be able to figure out that it was you that sent the story in. The email address you can send your stories to is very easy to remember. It consists of 2 words and 3 numbers. The first word is Tony, spelled Tony, and the second word is and, spelled AND, and the numbers are 777. So once again, the name is Tony and 777 at AOL.com. Well, let us begin. I think our first miracle today really proves that God does send us coincidence miracles. I hope I explain it well to do it justice. I was personally recently inspired to drive an hour and a half to Rhode Island to do something for someone there. And I drove back home after I completed the task, another hour and a half back. And when I got to a certain intersection, the last intersection really before my home, when I got to the last intersection, I saw a car in front of me with a license plate number 777, which you all may know by now if you read our book or heard prior radio shows. The 3 numbers 777 is God's holy number in history. People have attributed that to God. It signifies God's power, His permission, and His participation. So when you see 3 sevens, it's supposed to indicate to you that God's power and permission and participation is active with whatever you're doing. The reason why this is so amazing is because a year earlier, I was also inspired to go to Rhode Island, not on the same date, but during the year. I was inspired to go to Rhode Island and do the same thing, to help someone there in Rhode Island. And on that day, a year ago, not exactly a year ago, but about a year ago, when I got back to that same exact intersection, I found myself following a pickup truck, and the pickup truck was from Rhode Island, and we were now in Connecticut, where I live, and the pickup truck at the same intersection was in front of me, and its license plate number was 777. Now, if I said this too fast, you might have missed it, but what this reveals is I was inspired by God a year ago and also this year to go to Rhode Island to do something that God wanted me to do to help someone. And these are 2 dates, a year apart, not exactly, but approximately a year apart. And when I get back home to the exact identical intersection, which is the last intersection before my residence, both years there was a license plate in front of me with the number 777. Last year it was a license plate on a pickup truck from Rhode Island, and this year it was a license plate on a car from Connecticut. I think if you think about it for a while and realize that I ask God what to do every day, I ask Him to plan my day for me every day, and he had planned these two things for me to do. And he also had planned that at the last intersection at the end of the day, I would see license plates numbers 777. I hope this shows you that that's why I believe in coincidence miracles, and that's why I pay very much attention to when I see three numbers, 3 7s or 3 3s or 3 8s or 3 4s, etc., etc. If you Google our book, you'll see a lot of stories like this that are extremely convincing that God does guide us when we ask him what to do, and he does use numbers similar to Morse code. If you get used to the numbers he's using, you'll notice that he can use numbers to send you messages like this message I just told you about. Our next coincidence miracle is from a married couple that I met on one of my trips to Rhode Island. They're a very happily married couple at the moment, but they related this amazing coincidence miracle to me. They were using online dating services, and they'd been doing that for, I guess, about a year or more. And they were very frustrated with the results. They've been on a lot of first dates, but with no success, and it just wasn't working out. Even before they met each other, they were both frustrated. They were using different dating services, not the same one, but they were both frustrated. And before they even met each other, they relate the story that they both prayed. They didn't know this until after they met, but they both decided to pray and ask God to please help them. And they both tell me they said a similar kind of a prayer. Now, I created the words of this prayer, but just to convey to you that this was kind of what they were saying in their prayers. And they both said to me, they were both saying the exact same kind of prayer, especially with the message of an explosion, as you'll notice in a moment. So their letters were something like this, or their prayers to God, not letters, but their prayers to God. Please help me to find the right person, and please, God, allow me to feel some kind of an explosion, some kind of an activity within my soul when I meet the right person, so I'll know I'm really meeting the right person. And please do this for me, God, because I'm tired of going out on these dates that never get me anywhere, and I never meet the right person. I need some help from you, God, to sense within my soul, within my being, that I have finally met the right person. Okay, so that was their prayer, and they were both exhausted and tired about dating and going out on these dates that never got them anywhere. So that was their prayer. Now, I wish you could all have been there with me as they told me the rest of the story, so you could see the looks on their faces as they were both talking to me. First, the wife told me her story, and the husband was very quiet. And then when we were all done hearing the wife's story, he said the same exact thing, and he said he was just waiting patiently to get his turn to just tell you. He experienced the same thing as follows, which his wife explained. 5 seconds after they met at a restaurant, they agreed on a restaurant that they would first meet at, and 5 seconds after they got there, they both experienced this explosion that they were asking God to send them. They knew inside, and I'm going to describe the feeling they felt, but I'm sure I can't do it justice. It was a very gentle, not harmful, not uncomfortable, a very gentle electrical shock within their body that gave them gentle chills, but the chills were not cold chills. They were chills of something like a very warm, happy feeling that just totally encompassed them. And they never felt anything like this before, but they both experienced a similar kind of thing. They explained it a little differently, both of them, but I was just so blessed to see them because I was convinced by the look on their face, and they both teared up, by the way. They got tears in their eyes as they were telling me, so I was very convinced, and you would be convinced that they did ask God, and God did do this for them because they weren't making this up, I assure you. So they both had felt the same thing, and the miracle happened to them, this explosion 2 years ago. They've been extremely happy. They can't even tell me how happy they are ever since they met. They can't believe that two people could be so in love, and they've had this inner explosion. So the moral of this story is, ask God to help you find a mate. Ask him to send you some kind of a clue, a gentle explosion, I hope. don't get struck by lightning. But I met a couple that have experienced it, and I'm telling you, I was just so joyful to experience their story. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone I know who was on vacation in Newport, Rhode Island, and they relate the story that they were there on a Saturday, and they weren't sure they were going to be able to get to Sunday Mass on Sunday, and it was a concern of theirs because they generally go to Mass every Sunday. So it was a point of concern for them, and they didn't know the area too well yet. But they had to walk to their car later in the day on Saturday, and as they were walking to their car, they noticed they were walking by, I think it's St. Joseph's Church in Newport, Rhode Island, if I got it correctly. They were walking by St. Joseph's Church, and they saw some people going in, and they thought, well, maybe they're just tourists, going in, because it was 4 o'clock, and normally vigil masses on Saturday. Vigil mass on Saturday is a mass you can go to in the evening on Saturday, but they're usually not that early at 4 o'clock. They might be 5 o'clock or 5:30. So he thought that perhaps they were just tourists going in at 4 o'clock to see what was inside the church. But they got inspired as they were walking by. They felt a strong inspiration to just walk in and see if there is a mass. There's on a possible chance that maybe the Mass was starting up at 4 o'clock. And sure enough, they walked inside, and there was a full-blown Mass going on, and they walked in precisely on time. So this is certainly a coincidence miracle from God. We're talking about attending services on Sunday, which is important, just like the Jews have the Sabbath day that they have very strong ties to. Christians are concerned about getting to church on Sunday. And so they were inspired by God to go in, and sure enough, the Mass was going on. So this person was relating to me that he certainly feels that God got him to that right spot at that right moment, and got him to start thinking about Sunday Mass as he was walking by the church. And he knows from what happened to him that he was inspired and prompted to go inside and just look and see if the Mass was going on. Our next coincidence miracle is from someone who tells us they've been inspired recently to pay compliments to people when they see people. Their intention, they're inspired to do this, but their intention is to bring some joy and happiness to other people wherever they can. While they're shopping or traveling or getting gas, they look for opportunities to compliment people. And they look for things like complimenting their clothes or their shoes or their hairstyle or something about them. And even in conversations, they might compliment them on the sound of their voice. And they tell us that they've been noticing coincidence miracles, and they get responses from people like, gee, I needed to hear that. I'm going on a job interview in about an hour. Or they get a comment that they're going on a blind date, etc. So they're inspired to do this, and they see the feedback, and they know they're getting coincidence miracles. So I guess I'm going to encourage everybody to try it and see what happens. I'm going to try it myself. It sounds like they're overjoyed by the success. And I guess they're inspired. Yeah, they are inspired on which people to say it to and which people not to. But just to look for some sign of something where you can compliment people and brighten up their day. I think we've had 4 great stories today. I told you about the 777 license plate, the dating couple. The couple dating had an explosion of feeling within them, walking into Mass at the right time, and complimenting people and seeing coincidence miracles in the process of just complimenting people. So there are opportunities for us to see coincidence miracles every day. God bless you all. I'll talk to you next week.